Toby, hi, good to see you. We've known each other quite a long time across different chapters in your life and your career. But for people listening, they'll see you as a COO, a branch manager, different senior roles, but they won't see where it really started. So let's go right back and see how it all started for you. So you started as a carpenter.
Hi, Aaron. Yes, correct. That's true. I started working hands on with the tools as a carpenter. And yes, that taught me a few things like, just how to respect each other, how to respect also the weather, the working in the field all year round, working through cold, rain, and heat and stuff like that. Afterwards, when I went to, studying and became a civil engineer, um, I deliberately kept working on site. Basically, always tried to stay close to the reality in construction because that always mattered to me quite a bit. I first started my career with engineered timber structures and working in that field for a while. And then all of a sudden, I was pulled into the facade industry. And this was 20 years ago. And since then, I never left. And that's basically how I ended up in the facade industry, and I enjoy it since then, basically.
So it's fair to say it's probably not your typical route into the facade industry today as we know it.
Yes and no. I took the second route, as we call it in Germany, basically not going right into the university and become an engineer and then start into the any industry within the construction business. I went basically a little bit through, the field work first, then became an engineer. And as an engineer, I still kept it in a similar way. I worked first in the field as a site manager, then worked basically, you know, through each department within the facade industry, like going through sales, design, purchasing, factory, fabrication, logistics, finance portion of it, project management, before I joined more into the general management side of things, because for me, it was always important to know and to be able to understand fully what it takes and what's required to get things done and stuff like that. So it's like, for me, it was the route, which I still think it's a good route. And, even these days, it's harder to find the right people, motivated people who actually, know what they want. Um, so I'm always more attracted to hire people who learned the trade first, and then went basically through the university years and studied. And you know, my finding is, that people who not just studied, who also learned the trade, are more capable of taking on all the challenges we have, especially in the facade industry.
Right. So those early years on the tools, what did they teach you that you still sort of carry with you now?
I mean, it's like, first, the respect for working in the field, knowing what it takes to work through all weathers, all seasons, work with all kind of different levels of people. That is for me important and key. The other thing is, like, you often find an engineer in the situation that the field crew tells him that cannot be done. I mean, I take the tools and show them how it can be done. And just going through simple things like that, I show basically, the field personnel, you know, don't just, take me off. I can show them how it works. And then, you learn, or you get the trust. You know what you're talking about, and that you can walk your talk. And that always helped me quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the two routes into the facade world. Maybe in Germany it's a bit different, but do you think the industry or the universities could give a pathway that's more obvious to go straight into the facade world? They could map something out for the graduates and the younger engineers.
It would be interesting to see if they are able to do that. What we do these days, now where I'm working at, Medica right now is we basically partner up with universities where we try to show the people which are studying currently and tell them how interesting the facade industry is, what this is all about, it takes, what it requires, why this is so interesting for us. So we try to partner, especially with those universities, to bring the information to the students right now, and then try to hire them right off of the university. And as I said, preferably, especially the people which have learned another trade before.
Yeah, I mean, the facade industry sits in a quite a unique space where it bridges engineering and architecture, and people maybe aren't aware of that.
Correct. And that's why, for us, it's very important to bring the information and the specialty about the facade industry to the students, so they understand and learn why we love what we do.
I mean, you've worked across Germany and America on some serious projects, um, with different cultures, different contracts, different types of pressures. Um, what hit you the most when you first started operating in the US?
Good question. Difficult to explain. I think, first of all, for me, it doesn't really matter where a project is located or which team is working on it. For me, it's always like construction, and especially the facade industry, is a people business. Teams on both ends basically need to respect and understand each other's and the boundary conditions they are working under. So listening in, understanding what the real requirements are, understanding on what is really the purpose or important to the client, what he wants to achieve with his facade, with his curtain wall and stuff like that, is for me like key. And the better the understanding is, the better the boundary conditions are, the smoother a project runs. And that's what I truly learned in the US, that before you even start working on a project, you get a fully brief from the client, from the architect, from the stakeholders on the project, on what the overall goal of a project should be. So all are on the same page. There's a very open and clear communication. And that for me is key. And then you can go through all the challenges coming around it, and you can resolve them and get them taken care of.
I mean, there's been a number of European facade companies that have expanded into the US markets over the years, some more successfully than others.
Yes.
If someone was asking you for your advice, what would you say is the main thing that people would typically underestimate expanding into the US market?
I mean, you have a lot of aspects you need to think about. It starts with a lot of financial topics like bonding, insurances, exchange rates, securing all those kind of things. Of course, tariffs, all the shipping terms and things like that. So there are a lot of topics which need to be thoroughly considered and taken care of. On the other hand, don't want to take the work away from the local teams. So instead of fighting them, it's, in my opinion, a good topic to work together and see where you can help out each other. So specialize on certain things they probably don't want to do because of risk perspective is, or it's becoming too special, and then step in, take over those portions and deal with it, and then work together on those projects, work as a team, respect each other, work on eye level, and then that could for sure work.
There's a point where you stop running projects and you start carrying more company risk in your career, contracts at scale, bonding, cash flow, teams across different areas, different regions, different borders. When did that shift happen for you?
I mean, the shift happened when I worked more and more on the management side of things, and under Roshman stepped into basically a COO position where I all of a sudden had much more responsibility to make sure that the entire ship is steering in the right direction. And the pressure increases massively the more responsibility you take on. And then, of course, you need to continuously grow. And the main topic around all those kind of, more and more responsibility and stuff like that is that you develop a team around you, which you can trust, which you don't micromanage, which you allow them to resolve the upcoming issues in their own manner. That the more you let them work as they are used to work and you trust them, then you basically get this perfect team around you. And all of a sudden, the problems stop feeling like crisis. They
Right.
resolve themselves, and you can work together through that as a team.
When your signature is now on something that could cost the business millions, what does that actually feel like?
It doesn't matter to me, because when you have a team around you, which clearly takes into consideration what the risks are, work through the risks, identify the risks, then you go through that and resolve it. And sometimes there are, topics on the table which could cost the company quite some money. On the other hand, sometimes you need to invest in a project or invest into certain relationships, and you get it back at a later stage. So it's all like taking in consideration what you're up to. When you have a contract in place, of course, my topic is we have taken the responsibility, so we will deliver. So we will always walk our talk. And then, of course, you need to make sure that you work together with all the stakeholders, discuss it openly,
Mhm.
find a way of resolving it, and go through it.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, at that level, things do go wrong from time to time. Claims, disputes, difficult conversations. Without sort of pinpointing anything to a project, is there a moment or a situation that you've had to navigate commercially that you found difficult?
Of course, you always have situations like that when, you all of a sudden run out of budget, when you all of a sudden, um, certain topics become way more expensive than ever thought about, or partner of yours which you planned to work through is all of a sudden um, going bankrupt, and you need to find somebody else, and it's becoming all more expensive whatsoever. I mean, there are always topics coming up like that, but the key is identify them and keep working on them. Because if you push it to the side, if you avoid it, if you try to solve it later, it never helps you. As soon as you become aware of it, take care of it, resolve it, work through it. And that's actually what we always try to do: manage those things, take care of it, and then go through it.
Okay. I mean, if someone who doesn't know you was to see your CV or go onto LinkedIn, they'd see the titles that you've got and you've had in the past, but they don't really see what sits behind them. Nobody really understands about being a COO or a branch manager. What they don't know is the part that follows you. What do you take home with you? Which part sort of do you feel travels with you?
I mean, you know, the more, as I said, the more responsibility you take, the more things go home with you every day. The pressure is always there, especially if you genuinely love what you do. I've always believed that if you want to be truly good at your job, you have to love it. So your heart needs to be involved. And as soon as your heart is involved, you will take things home. And this can be everything which comes along with the job. But as soon as you have those kind of things, you need people you can rely on, like your family, your partner. Without the understanding of wife and family, I couldn't do what I'm doing. The international business and also the national business, and honestly, everything which comes around that, it never really switches off. I had calls from 7 a.m. until midnight, and that was quite normal around the
Mm,
clock.
mm,
And then if you try to be there for your own people as well, then, there are no exceptions. They can always call, you need to be there basically around the clock.
mm,
And with all that travel which is involved, that can be a real killer. It takes a toll on your body, it drains your energy,
mm,
and yet you still have to perform. So that's what I truly appreciate, that now working for Medicare, I don't need to travel those long distances right now.
mhm.
But yes, you need to be able to manage the pressure, the risk, family life as good as you can manage the work in your job. So this all has to be taken into consideration, and it's a huge thing.
Yeah, I mean, would you say that the facade world is changing much, where there's now more risk involved, tighter margins, more pressure from clients? Do you see that? Is there a difference between when you started and now?
There is sure a difference, but on the other hand, there is not so much difference. I hope and firmly believe that honesty, sustainable relationship and partnerships, and genuine effort will remain the foundation of success. So for me, it's always like soft skills will basically a very important factor. And if you understand your clients, you understand the partners around you, the more you bring in trust and understanding and relationships, then you can take on whatever project it is right now or 10 years back. I don't see a huge difference. Yes, the margins are smaller, maybe. On the other hand, it's not all about margins. Right now, for example, if you take advantage of a contract because see the opportunity there and you file a change order and you take advantage, that client will not hire you again if he finds out. But
Mm,
if you go through challenges together, don't let your clients down. They will always come back to you, even if you're not the cheapest. So for me, like working right now at Medicare, where we mainly serve repeat and long-term clients, you can actually see that this mindset works. This philosophy of the foundation is basically sustainable business. So we don't just fight to win a contract at the lowest price. We are basically asked to do the next job with the client as well. So it's like we want to work with repeating customers. We want to work with clients which are trusting you, which we are trusting them as well. So there is a level of expectations and there is a level of trust there, which actually, whatever comes on a project, it will be resolved and it will be taken care of.
yeah,
Nobody takes advantage of the other, and that actually works quite well.
that level of trust and having those type of relationships, that doesn't it doesn't happen overnight. That's something you have to keep working on, and you're only as good as your last project, I guess.
Yes, I mean, you will certainly also have projects which are maybe maybe not running that well. But if you don't try to hide it, openly discuss it, be honest about it, because everybody has sometimes some issues in too much workload in fabrication, design, whatsoever. Be open with your client.
Yeah,
Discuss it, resolve it, and it won't end up in a lose of trust. It will end up in a gain of understanding and openness, and therefore trust again, because you don't hold behind bushes. You basically openly speak about issues and resolve them together.
you mentioned Medica partners with the local universities. So, looking at the industry going forwards, um, what gives you the confidence when you look at the next generation coming through?
I mean, it's maybe harder to find people with the heart and the willingness to really excel and work through those challenges ahead of us. That level of trust, that level of what is key for us to run a successful business is what we need to teach them. The younger generation need to understand what it takes to run a business like that. So our responsibility is to bring that information and to bring that knowledge forward to the younger people so they can actually learn and work in a similar manner. It's maybe harder to find those younger people which are actually having those same thoughts and the same soft skills, but they are still there, and we just need to keep developing, and we need to hire young people. We need to bring young people into our industry, and we need to for sure train them well on the technology side of things, but also on the soft skill side of things. And
Mhm.
that's what my golden rule is for any hires we do. Whenever I hire somebody, for me it's more important what is the personality of this person, where are they with their soft skills. That's for me way more important than any technical knowledge or whatsoever, because technical knowledge, you can train them on everything. But for me, it's always like, and this is kind of a saying I have, a prick remains a prick. I want to have basically people which can actually work within the teams, which can work with the clients, with the partners perfectly in a good harmony. So it actually functions as a really good team work, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Well, just reflecting back on your own career for a second, when you look back at your career so far, what have you been most proud of?
Good question. I mean, I wouldn't have changed a lot of things. I
Mhm.
wouldn't have changed, the path I've chosen. What I'm most proud of, I mean, you walk through certain cities, look at the curtain walls and facades you have worked with your team on, and you see those kind of envelopes on those buildings. And, that's for me where I'm really proud of. Or you see in some of your buildings and facades you worked on in movie trailers and movies and stuff like that. I mean, that's what I'm proud of. I love what I'm doing because you can actually see what the outcome is. So different than if you work in, I don't know, electrical or whatever, you don't actually see what you're doing. In curtain walling, you actually see the envelope of the building. And that's what for me is key. And that's where I'm proud of. And, I love every project we worked on in the past. And that's what I'm
Okay.
really proud of.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on to something a little bit more light-hearted. It's got 5 fast questions coming up. So, question 1: what project that has stayed with you the most and why?
I did a project, for example, a very small project in Philadelphia, where we just got, you know, a little bit outside of Philadelphia, 2 renderings, and the contractor asked us, "Can you build that?" And we said, "Yes, of course we can." We negotiated a price together, handshake contract kind of thing. Then the entire team from that point onwards, they were all in the loop. From the electricians to the concrete guys to the general contractor, architect, owner, everybody was on one email chain. And every project, every problem, everything was resolved through that, chain. And everybody, whenever somebody had an idea how to, resolve an issue, they just, throw their point in. And that was really a unique project, very successful project for the entire setup. It was visually at the end really, really interesting. And yes, that's one of the projects I definitely keep in mind.
Been one long email thread by the end of it.
I mean, it was always a new threat, but the
Right.
same
Yeah. The
people
same
involved.
people were copied
Yeah,
in. Yeah. Okay.
correct.
What's one piece of advice, or the best piece of advice you've been given that's helped you in your career?
I mean, one advice I always kept in mind from, I would say, an old guy, which I always keep in mind, is like, whenever you hire somebody, a person which is working with you in your company, or a partner, or if you even consider a contract, if you have doubts, think about it twice. Because if you have doubts, then rather not do it. This is kind of where I always kept on a little bit.
Okay. Do you have a favorite city or best city that you've worked in?
I love Boston. Really, really beautiful city. I lived for a couple of years there. So yes, that's where
What is it about Boston?
It's a mixture between US and it still kept it, or they still kept it a little bit European as well. My son is born there too. So I had a really good time with our client, with the general contractor there. I lived right off Fenway Park. So we had a lot of baseball games we went to. So it was in general a really, really good time there. Yes.
A good emotional connection then.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got the weekend away. What are you going to do? Cycling in the mountains or chilling out on the beach?
Cycling in the mountains, for sure.
What do you love about that?
This is, when you do a lot of cycling, it requires endurance. And, whenever I read on a CV that somebody is, cycling, even if it's road bike or mountain biking, it doesn't matter. But that person has endurance. And if you hire him, he will just work through any problem, any issue, whatever comes on the road. And that's what cycling is all about. It doesn't matter how far you go. You have hills in between and you just, go over it step by step.
That's good advice. Anybody sending their CV to you?
Absolutely.
Put cycling on it. Okay. I'm not saying anyone should make it up if it's not true. But, right.
Correct.
All right. So what would you be doing in your career if you weren't in facades? Maybe you'll be doing Tour de France.
Maybe I would still be a carpenter. Right. And I still love that. I still do that. I take every year, I take a 1-week vacation where I will actually handle a kind of carpentry project. So yeah, I try to keep the skills there. I try to do something in the carpentry every year. So that's my little, if I don't be in the facade industry anymore, I will probably be a carpenter.
Have you made anything recently that's worth discussing?
Yeah, I just made a shed for my bikes. So it was a complete timber structure, then glazed in, of course.
Of course.
And so I combined basically all hobbies at once. Cycling, facade, and timber. So yes, all went into one project.
Did you find a decent project manager for that?
Yeah, it was myself.
Yeah.
I did from the drawings to fabrication to ordering to installation all by myself. Yes.
Very nice. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Toby, I've really enjoyed that. And there's a lot of people I'm sure will recognize what we've discussed. Just want to thank you for being so open with your time, and we'll leave it there for today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it as well.